心的灰，夜深无畏，盼你不要迷路。
See, look at all these trailers you guys don't even remember. What would you do without me, eh? Anybody? No? Hi guys, and welcome to another video. Today we're going to be doing Tyria 3D again. Now, I will come out with a disclaimer. Nothing in this video is going to be as insane as, say, the Fissure of Woe map we did last week. But there are still a lot of interesting maps to show off, and since this week we've already done a great deal of discussion about difficult content, I thought this one would be rather interesting to show. It's got a lot to do with Feature Pack 2, the new player experience, and specifically the Chinese launch of the game, plus a little bit more. So with that in mind, before I go off on some huge long ramble, let's take a look at it. Oh, check this out. Now this is a really gorgeous looking map. Certainly nowhere that we've ever explored before. I don't even think this will come in the game, as I often end up saying with these Tyria 3D videos. Look at this, it's incredibly pretty. Let me bump the fog distance up so we can see the full thing. And now it may remind you guys a little bit of the Heart of the Mist. You've got kind of these large ruined structures, some of them floating, clearly is something to do with the mists. But the layout is nothing like the Heart of the Mist we've seen so far. And specifically, it's got these giant dragon pillars. I did a lot of talking with that shaman before producing this video. I've been really bad lately actually crediting him for stuff. If you guys follow his Twitter, he has been posting about little things like that, like these, that don't appear in his large Reddit post for a long time. These dragons are in the client, but they do not appear anywhere in-game as we've seen, except on this unreleased map. And these first were mined around the time of the Chinese client. So what are we looking at here, guys? Where's the actual playable space? So a lot of this looks really pretty and cool, but I don't actually think we were going to be walking around on these bridges. In fact, I can tell you for a fact we weren't. The original versions of Tyria 3D that had no collision never showed any of these beautiful areas here at all, because they have no collision. They only appeared once we started to see these areas with textures. So, really, the only playable areas we see are these small platforms. So we got one here. My initial thoughts when I very first saw this with just the collision data was, oh, is this some kind of weird thing with fractals? We've got some kind of a platform here and a portal, as you can see. And then we got another one over here. We got some weird, like, cloud-looking structures here, or rocks that are floating. And we come to another one. And again, it's kind of small, but there's another little area, and there's actually some different stuff here. There's some test dummies on this one, and a little central area, perhaps. Then we get another portal that takes us to another one. And again, a slightly different configuration, absolutely gorgeous looking map. But what was this for? Now, some of you guys will probably already have twigged. What this map is it's a tutorial map. And it's kind of got a pretty interesting history. Now, as I say, this week we've been talking a lot about difficult content. One thing that has come up in a few comments I've read that I think is really important, specifically when I've talked about difficulty in Guild Wars 2 and now Nothing's Hard, it's a lot of players don't understand much about the game because it's never required. And so even if ArenaNet were to add a tutorial to Guild Wars 2, how useful would a tutorial be when you learn it in your first couple of hours playing the game and then you never have to use it again? I think that's a serious problem that plagues GW2, but we've never had a real tutorial. Remember when they added Feature Pack 2? Feature Pack 2 actually carried over a lot of features that had already been developed for the Chinese client, for the Chinese release. And among those were changes that meant you can no longer die in that initial starting story instance at the beginning of the game. Other changes included gating a lot of our abilities very heavily so that players would be fed mechanics much slower throughout the course of the game and hopefully get a better grip with what was going on. And lastly, we had like the little dodge roll areas that would teach people how to dodge roll in starting areas of the game. That was kind of ArenaNet's tutorial. That was their solution to the problem. But it does look like, internally at least, they had a much better solution they were working on. This is a tutorial map. Actually, to look at what this is referred to, as Shaman explains this, I'm not too great with this. I think he explains this as being called MapTutorialChina. So, for a while, when they were developing the Chinese client, it seems they were looking at adding a full tutorial to the game. Was this supposed to be for PvE players as well? I really couldn't say. The Heart of the Mists kind of vibe that I get from the area suggests to me that it is not. Those of you guys who PvP... In fact, I still regularly speak to people who don't know that this exists. There is already a tutorial, PvP tutorial in the game. The first time you ever load into Heart of the Mist, you'll end up there. And you can take the portal back if you choose to speak to an NPC, where it will teach you how to stomp a couple of people. But it's really nothing that great. Guild Wars 1 had much better tutorial systems in place. Not amazing ones, but would take you into small arenas where you could learn skills at your leisure in a variety of quests that would teach you various things about the various formats of the game, but it's really never been that robust. And so now I'm wondering, why was this cut? Was the result of this being cut why we ended up seeing such aggressive like leveling gating on skills and things for NPE2? There was a lot of discussion back then, a lot of outrage from the community, as you guys should well remember, talking about how we need proper tutorials rather than what they did, and it was totally on ArenaNet's minds. Even further than that though, you guys might be surprised to hear that this map is older even than the Chinese release. This map was originally mined 2.5 years ago. So about 6 months after the launch of game, this actually appeared in our clients. It appeared for a very brief period of time. It didn't look as pretty as this, and it didn't use the dragon platforms, but this did actually appear an awful long time ago before disappearing once again for a long period of time, and then finally popping up once again around Feature Pack 2 and around the Chinese release. So they totally had an idea for a tutorial area that was shortly after launch, that they then scrapped, that they then looked at again when they were thinking about doing the Chinese release, and then they ended up not releasing once again. And so much detail and effort had gone in here. Aside from how nice it looks, let's be logical here. I mean, how many platforms have we got here? Maybe 5 or 6? I mean, what could each one teach us? It seems like certainly one of them's got practice dummies. It'd be like, hey, here's how you use your skills. It seems like a couple of them maybe have like little areas. If this was going to be PvE oriented, probably teach you how to capture a point. Some of them could have had NPCs that teach you how to stomp, but nothing super advanced seems like it could have really taken place here. It doesn't seem like you would be able to wage entire battles here. And again, I'm very curious about whether this was going to be just for PvP or all players. Would all players come here before then doing their starting thing? So, but then that would just be weird. Like, what if you were Sylvari? You come to this weird odd place in the mists, and then you finish it, and then you're suddenly in the dream, and then you wake up from it. Like, I don't know, maybe they just decided that this wasn't serviceable. The other thought, though, is that if this is a PvP-only tutorial, why would they have the motivation of doing that? Well, yes, first of all, we didn't have too many people in PvP. A lot of people didn't understand PvP. There wasn't, like, a good system, and still isn't a good system in the game for people who are nervous about it to get in and, like, get the groundwork going. But also, I wonder about this. One of the biggest, like, community requests of ArenaNet when it comes to PvP, especially when PvP was in really dire straits, before even spectator mode was in, when it used to take, like, an hour to queue, before even there was queuing, when it was the old tournament system, for example, just after launch, when it was very clearly a really shoddy shell of a beta of an experience that had been packaged into a release game. Way back then, a lot of people were requesting that Heart of the Mists and the entire PvP experience for Guild Wars 2 could go free to play. And that would be huge. We already know that a lot of massive PvP games out there that have reached that esport level, I'm looking at League of Legends and MOBAs in particular, they thrive because they're free to play, and they are monetized once players already get in there through stuff like skins, which Guild Wars 2 totally could do. So the idea would be that because Heart of the Mists was very separate from the rest of the Guild Wars 2 experience, it had its own rewards, it was almost like its own game, going free to play wouldn't be too hard, and then that would bring a lot more life into the game. And if it goes free to play, if they allow you to make a PvP only character, as you could have done in GW1, they would definitely need something more of a tutorial than what we originally saw. But then, as you guys will remember, around the time of Feature Pack 1, they didn't go with this angle. They decided to integrate PvP a lot more into the game. They weren't going to make PvP free to play. They merged the rewards together and tried to encourage people to cross over game types. PvE and World vs. World players would be experiencing this game type too. And I think at that point they decided maybe this tutorial wasn't entirely necessary. It was thrown to the side until it was looked at again for the Chinese release. And this is what we get. So yeah, I just thought this was pretty on theme with a lot of the stuff we were talking about. Certainly a gorgeous map. What do you guys think about this whole tutorial topic as well? Do you think Guild Wars 2 really needs it? Or do you think that just by designing content that requires people to learn their skills better, it will be enough? Should we treat like the 1 to 80 experience as the tutorial? Or should players really just load into a place like this and learn a whole bunch of stuff at the start, potentially then forgetting it afterwards? A couple of other little things that Shaman told me about just before we move on from this map. It was at one point mined the text, you can't teleport to a player while it is in a tutorial. And there were a few region names as well. There was the Island of Trials, there was the Colloquy of Heroes, the Misty Woods, and Wandering Isle. And I'm wondering whether we're just seeing the Island of Trials here, and the other names were for different things, or each name refers to a different platform. I really have no idea. I do want to thank Shaman for the extra information on this video, and of course Request Timeout, who actually made this website. Just so you guys know, this one I'm exploring today is available on the live website. For Tyria 3D, you'll find a link in the description. You can explore it for yourself among a whole load of other videos. There's been big updates since I started covering the site, and you might be interested in checking those out. So yeah, a bit of a shorter Tyria 3D video for today, guys. There is a lot of other stuff. There's actually a precursor map to Edge of the Mists we may show off next time. That one's pretty exciting. And maybe we can do some other World vs. World stuff as well. You'd be surprised how much is out there. But cheers, guys. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I will see you next time.
微光之处